cloudy and wonderful. So maybe it's true, in like a lion, out like a lamb in March. Isn't that what they say about March? I think it's true. I am the Reverend Michelle Ingalls. And this morning we're starting a new theme for March, and it's on the front of the bulletin. It's "We honor the divine in and through all creation," something to that effect. If you have a bulletin in your hand, you can see. What is it, Rob?
Honoring the divine in all creation.
Honoring the divine in all creation. Big idea, right? And when I'm standing up here looking from this spiritual perspective, that looks great. But let's make it practical and applicable to our everyday, daily life. And this is one of the main spiritual principles that the science of mind, new thought in general, actually teaches, is that there is only one life, and that life is God's life. All there is God. Ernest Holmes, our founder, put it like this: God is all. That's a profound statement. There is but one power, intelligence, and consciousness in the universe, but one presence. This one presence cannot change. There is nothing for it to change into. It just expresses in a variety and a multitude of forms and experiences. I love that. There is only God. That's all there is. So, here we have this profound, big spiritual idea. All there is God, where we believe that there is one all-encompassing, all-powerful, all-intelligent life that expresses itself in and through and as its creation through a creative law that is constant, impersonal, unchanging, and is working all the time. And then we have the coronavirus. How do we reconcile the two? Big question. Here is where believing in this one, unchangeable, constant, impersonal law that is working all the time, and the things that we don't want to see, becomes a little tricky. How do we explain that? How do we bring these two ideas, expressions together? Because either all demonstration, all form and experience is the manifest body of God, or it is not. Either everything that we experience in our life is an expression of God, or it is not. So, I know that gravity does not keep us down on the surface of the earth when it feels like it, if it likes us. It works all the time. This is a law. This is a natural law, just like the creative law. If I participate with the nature of electricity, when I turn on the switch, it will come on. And it won't care if I'm just raiding the refrigerator at night to get a midnight snack. And it doesn't want me to do that. It doesn't matter. Law is law, and it responds the same all the time. So that means that we must believe that there is, in mind, a cause for what we are seeing in form. Now, there is the universal mind of the divine, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, and there is the individualized mind that filters through us as our individual life as humans. Ernest Holmes also said that there is a collective consciousness, he called it a race consciousness. I call it a human race consciousness, in which we are all thinking together. And that a cause in that collective consciousness will manifest in our experience. So that means, in my way of thinking and in my belief, that there is a cause in the collective human race consciousness that believes in the coronavirus. And we are individually at choice to go with the flow of this common race consciousness or think a new thought in a new way. We are always at choice. My vision for this spiritual center, for this beautiful spiritual community, one heart, one mind, is that we think a new thought. That we move into the wholeness and the perfection of the divine idea of us as human beings wants to express itself in form, to think a new idea, to think into the collective race consciousness, the perfection and the wholeness of who we are. That's my vision for this. Are you with me?
Yes. Pretty heavy. Yeah.
It's pretty heavy. It is. It really is. You know, there's been a conversation on the ministerial listserv, which is just a Google group of all the ministers in our organization. Not everybody always participates, but there's always conversation and questions and lively stuff going on there. And the other day, a minister posted a quote from a book that I'd actually never heard of, which really surprised me. It's called Ernest Holmes, His Life and Times, and it was written by his brother Fenwick. I actually went online and found it and ordered it because who else but Fenwick would know exactly what was going on in Holmes' mind, except for Holmes. But anyway, there was this great quote, and it is in reference to the influenza epidemic of 1918. And he wrote this: "Later, the work of our Metaphysical Institute went on during the great influenza epidemic in the fall of 1918, which took hundreds of lives in California as schools, theaters, and churches were closed, and people went about the streets with white gauze masks, attempting to shut out the germ or virus and escape the contagion. Workers fell ill at their desks in the business places of the city, returned to their homes and hospitals, and were seen no more. We went about our business as usual, and although we treated many people who came or telephoned for help, we did not have a single failure." Let me read that again. We did not have a single failure. This is spiritual conviction. This is the power of our word when we stand in the truth that is already true in universal divine mind, in the perfection and the wholeness. And this is where we go to contribute a new idea into the collective consciousness or race consciousness of human thinking. Are you with me?
Yes.
You know, when I first started my talk, I wasn't talking about the coronavirus, and I thought it would be irresponsible as a minister for me not to address this topic that is all over the place. And if it is on my mind, I bet it's on yours. My daughter lives in Sonoma County and works in Marin County, which is just a stone's throw from Solano County, where they're already having cases of the coronavirus. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned anyway, but when it hits home, when it's your family, you really pay attention. You really pay attention. So it is tempting to want to think that there are some things outside the realm of the divine. It is tempting to think that there are some things that God just can't touch because that's just the way they are. But that is not the spiritual truth. That is not who we are as divine expressions and being of this one life. It is tempting. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The temptation is error thinking, to be in the common zeitgeist, if you will, common thought of what is producing this virus. And not only the virus, anything. Any unexpected thing that shows up, any kind of an illness, a lost job, a divorce, an accident, whatever it looks like, whatever it is so tempting to believe that this has the final word because we see it in real time. But the truth is that we know that whatever shows up in our life is an effect. It is not causal, and we know what is causal. Consciousness is causal. So I invite us to stand in the consciousness of our wholeness to think a new thought, to create a new way of being. Ernest Holmes said this, and I ran across this. It's actually one of my very favorite Ernest Holmes quotes because it's so sure. He said, "Stay with the one and never deviate from it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude." And here he really goes in. I want you to really hear this because I can hear it with my heart and it empowers me. To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. To desert the the truth in the hour of need, right when it looks like there is no hope, is exactly when we need to know who we are, when we need to be called home. And he goes on, when things look the worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to truth. The only obstructions there are to truth are the ones that we put there. We are bound because we are first free. So, again, my vision for this center is that we know the truth. My vision for this center is that as a collective consciousness of one heart, one mind, we stay in the truth and we do not deviate from this attitude. Are you with me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And do you know how powerful we are? That right now we are making a commitment and a covenant to stay in the truth. Now, this does not mean that we do not see the coronavirus. We see that it has demonstrated. We feel compassion and support for the people that are suffering. It isn't that we don't see pain and suffering. It isn't that we are blind to it, but we know that it doesn't get the final word. You know, I joined this ministerial, I guess I could call it a support group. It's a group of ministers who get together and we talk about issues that are up for us in ministry. And I was on this call on Thursday morning. One of the ministers was talking about his mentor, that is a Christian minister who has actually really exploded his church. It has gone from practically nothing to almost a mega church. And this minister, this Science of Mind minister that I was talking to, has been mentored by him, and he said that this Christian minister asked him, why is it that you don't ever want to look at any of the negative stuff? How come you don't want to look at the pain and the suffering and the anger and the frustration that is real in human experience? And Mark said, you know, he kind of has a point. There are times when we do tend to put on rose-colored glasses and only want to see the good stuff. But that's not the point of what we're doing. What we're doing is recognizing that this has demonstrated, but it doesn't get the final word. It is not causal. So while we have compassion for people that are going through grief or pain or suffering, we don't stay there. We don't get in a rut and furnish it. We don't park there. We have a different idea. We recognize that in the divine mind, in the all that is mind of the one life, there is wholeness and perfection. And we align with that. And it is always at the depth of our being. It is always there. So we carry the attitude of perfection and health and wholeness that is our divine inheritance. And we see what has demonstrated, and we say there's a better way. There's a deeper truth. And we align with that. So, back to today's topic. Today's topic, I'm going to go back to this, is the Holy Reimagined. Which is really, you know, as we move through this idea of recognizing the divine in all creation, we'll talk about different ways in which we do that. The Holy Reimagined is really looking at the word holy and sacred and spiritual and divine and looking at them in a different way, because we tend to put these kind of words all in a specific category that we touch during our meditation time and our prayer time and our deep contemplation time, when these are words that need to be accessible and real in our everyday lives. So we're going to reimagine how that might look for us. So I looked up the word holy. The origin of the word holy comes from the Old English. I'm going to have to turn again. And it means that which must be preserved whole and intact. That which cannot be transgressed against or violated. Well, that is the part of us that is real, that we are connecting with to express and experience a whole and perfect life. It is the spirituality that comes alive when we recognize it as we move through our daily life, that we allow to inform everything we do, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our words, This is what we go to, that part of us that cannot be transgressed against or violated. No matter what somebody else says to us or what happens to us or what is going on, there is always that part within us that we can connect to. And the more often I do it, the better I get at doing it while I'm on the fly, while I'm walking through my dailiness. Have you noticed that we use the word holy as an expletive when something surprising happens, whether good or bad? Something like, holy smoke, holy cow, or holy cannoli, Batman. We use it when we're taken by surprise, when we're pulled out of the ordinary. That is the attitude that we want to have during our everyday moving around the world life. That everything is a holy event. That everything is infused with a sacredness that we can't be a part of, or we can't not be a part of. That we are connected with all the time, that everything is holy and good. And I think I used your quote, Ty. This is, I looked to see what Ernest Holmes had about holiness, and he didn't speak a lot about holiness, but I did find a couple of quotes, and this one was the one that, I don't see him. This is the one that he used for his meditation. The mind is the creative factor within us. And when the mind takes its pattern after spirit connects to that divine, universal mind, it automatically renews the outer man as a person after true holiness or wholeness. So it was clear to me that Ernest Holmes believed that the word holiness was all about being in the wholeness that we already are, in the perfection that we already are. And that never leaves us. That never leaves our lives. It is the creative factor within everything we do. So, along my spiritual journey, one of the things that I did, I think this was even before I got into step through a science of mind, or back then a religious science church, was I studied the Course in Miracles. Now, if you're familiar with the Course in Miracles, you know that it's a channeled work. It was channeled through a woman named Helen Schuckman. It is not science of mind, and yet, like other philosophies and spiritual traditions, it has commonalities with science of mind. And it teaches that everything is love. Well, does that sound familiar? Everything is God. We can use love as a synonym for the divine, for God, spirit, whatever you call that, presence and force. So I did the workbook. There's three parts to the Course in Miracles. One is the text, one is the student workbook, and one is the workbook for teachers. So I did the student workbook, and the second lesson in the Course in Miracles actually repeats itself throughout the course. And it is this, and I don't think I did a slide. I think oh, wait, yes, I did do a slide. Oh, good for me. This is the second lesson in the course that repeats itself often. I have given everything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, all the meaning that it has for me. This is what we teach in Science of Mind, that our perspective, the filter through which we move the creative law or process through us, is what will demonstrate in our life. So my husband and I play this game, and I think I've mentioned it before. We tell stories. We'll see somebody at the park when we walk the dogs in the morning, we'll tell a story about them. And we'll joke and say, oh, is that the story you're going to write about that? But that's what we do all the time. We write stories about what we see. There's this thing called a belief centrifuge. I might have mentioned it here before, where you put your thoughts and your feelings in the centrifuge, and the facts stay, because the facts are the facts, right? And all of the ideas that you wrote around the facts are removed. So I might have lost my job, and the story I'm telling myself about this is that I'm just simply not worthy. Well, is that a fact? No. You are worthy. It is who you are. Inherently, you are worthy because you're here, and you're valuable, and you contribute. But that might not be the story I wrote around it. So oftentimes and those emotional stories that we write, they charge us up. We really fire up the law, and we create from them instead of the fact that this is okay. This is what came up. Sometimes I haven't used it in a long time, I used to use it all the time, that metaphor or analogy about the carpet cleaning. We clean our carpets, and they look beautiful and they're great. And they stay that way for about 2 weeks. And then what happens is all of the dirt that is ground in down at the fibers on the bottom begins to wick up through the clean stuff. And it shows itself. And that's what happens with us. We heal something in our life, we're feeling good, we are demonstrating some good stuff here, and here comes some more stuff. Whatever is unhealed in our subjective mind will show itself so that we may know more fully the love that we are and who we have come here to be. So when that stuff wicks up, we just say, oh, hello. Tell me more. Why are you here? So whenever I think about the things that come up for us, unexpected, where in the world did that come from? It seems like it came out of nowhere, like the coronavirus. I always think of that story that I know I've told here before about the truckload of dung. It's from a book by the same name by a Zen Buddhist monk who lives in Australia named Ajahn Brahm. And in this book, he tells the story about, imagine that one day you've been at the beach, you had such a fabulous day, it was just a beautiful day, you were hanging out with your friends, you're in the best mood, and you come home, and there right in your doorway is a truckload of dung. What do? And you only know 3 things about this truckload of dung. Let me make sure I get them right. I will get them right. 1, you didn't order it. And it's not your fault. I didn't order this truckload of dung, and it's not my fault. 2, you're stuck with it. No one saw who delivered it, so you can't call anyone to come and pick it up. And 3, it's filthy and offensive, and the stench is filling up your entire house. That's what you know about the dung. And there are only 2 responses. 1, you can start filling up your pockets, your purse, your backpack, your briefcase, and distributing it around as you go through your life. You'll lose a lot of friends this way. It stinks. No one wants to be around you. You're that guy who always smells like dung. Or you can get a wheelbarrow and a shovel, and you can move that dung around to the backyard, into the garden, and you can grow the most amazing vegetables and flowers that you have ever grown. You can use it as compost. And you know, we use that metaphor of the seed, soil, and plant all the time in our teaching. We can use that dung, that experience that just showed up, we didn't order it, and we're stuck with it, to fertilize, to nurture, to cultivate the creative medium of our subjective mind so that we can plant new seeds. So that we can plant seeds of a new experience that we want to have. Because while we don't ignore the fact that the dung is there, we know that it can be used for a higher and better good. And so we put it to use. So I don't know what the cause of the coronavirus is. I would never presume to know what it is. But I would imagine that somehow or another we're defective. And we're not. So I'm going to use the dung of this experience to fertilize my subjective mind individually and contribute to the collective subjective mind that there is perfection and wholeness and health here, that there is safety, and that all is well. And that all is well. I have a vision for this center, that every person that walks through our doors knows that this is a safe place for them. This is a place where they can be in touch with the perfection of their own being. I have a vision for this center, that we come together in a collective way to know the truth, to be a light, to welcome everyone, to transform our lives individually and collectively and reach it out into the world. I have a vision for this center, and I am inviting you to join me. Are you with me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I wanted to share this one last thing from Holmes. Oh, well, there were 2, but that's okay. We'll come back to that. I read this in the back of, I was going to bring the book, but I have it up here. How how to change your life. And I love this as a metaphor for who we are as a community. I know that in the house of experience, this human life we're living, in which I live, the host is God, and all people are guests. We are guests of the divine life. The invitation has been eternally written for all to enter and dwell therein as the guests of the eternal host, in joy, integrity, and friendship. I do now fully accept my divine obligation to express only love and appreciation to and for everyone I encounter, knowing that what I think, say, and do returns to me. That's the way it works. I permit divine love to operate through me into my daily concerns. We are nothing if not practical and applicable to our human lives. Now, only harmonious, happy, and mutually beneficial relationships fill my life. And I really want you to feel this. I rejoice in the divine harmony which surrounds me. And so it is. So let's pray together. I invite you to take a nice deep centering breath in. I know that all there is God. God, Spirit, the divine, whatever you want to call it. The thing itself. It is big, bold, beautiful. It is real. It is true. It is omniscient. It is within each and every one of us now. It is beautiful. It is valuable. It is perfect, meaning nothing is missing. It is whole. There are no parts missing. Everything is there within you right now, right where you sit in that very chair. It surrounds you, it blesses you, it loves you, it is you. It is your life. It is the flow of divine creative life moving through you in every full, beautiful, imaginable way. So I speak my word, my powerful word, into the law of cause and effect, that there is a shift in consciousness in everyone in this room, right here, right now, and everyone who walks on this planet, that we are the divine health, the perfection, the wholeness of this divine life, for it is the only truth there is. And in this moment, we stand in conviction that we are whole, healthy, perfect in every area of our life, especially our healthy bodies, which are energized and revitalized with the divine life moving, coursing through it, like that green growing edge on the tips of the leaves that happen in spring. We are it. We are life. We are moving forward, and we know who we are. So for this new knowing, this new way of being, I speak this truth for all life on the planet, for our beautiful mother herself, who we walk upon her service, for every country on the face of her surface, and for our beloved United States of America, that she knows who she is and wakes up to truth, justice, and the divine light of God. So for this and so much more, I simply say thank you. I allow it to be because it's already true. And with this sense of gratitude, I'm expanded into the most convicted and established truth of being as I speak these words into law, for it is the way it is. So in divine grace and deep gratitude, I simply relax, I allow it to be, and we signify our agreement by saying together, and